So this video is going to be a quick review of the different vocab that we've learned this chapter, and then in class we will be doing a more in-depth vocab and more pictures and stuff like that. So ray TO, remember a ray is a segment with a line and an arrow. Okay, so I need to create my point T, I need to create my ray, and O. Okay, this first letter is always going to be my endpoint. Okay, so TO looks like that, and it's a ray. Line NO, okay, so this is a line, it is not a line segment, okay? So normally it would be labeled like this, but for some reason my computer wouldn't do it, okay? You could also see it written like this, so line NO. So if it's a line, that means it never ends, so I need my 2 points on it, and it needs to be continuous left and right. Okay, this could also be written line ON as well. Line segment PS. Okay, so this is going to be a segment. Okay, they are going to end. It could also be labeled PS with a little line segment like this. Okay, so a segment, just make sure that you have the end points and it is not continuous. Obtuse angle. So an obtuse angle is anything from between 90 and 180 degrees. Okay, so if I had an angle, this would be an obtuse angle because it is greater than my 90-degree angle but smaller than my 180-degree angle. Okay, so this is my obtuse angle. So between 90 and 180 does not include 90 and does not include 180 because remember those are two different names. Okay, and then we're going to label it. So R, S, O. Remember, S is always where your vertex is. Whatever that middle letter is, it's always your vertex. So right here. Acute angle TKO. Okay, so this is going to be less than 90 degrees. Okay, so we could be, it's between 0 and 90 degrees, but does not include 0 or 90. Okay, so if we're going to label it, we got to label it TKO. Okay, so my K is again going to be my vertex in this. Right angle MKO. A right angle is always 90 degrees. So we're going to have this, and then to show that it is 90 degrees, we need to put the little square in it. And then we have MKO. Okay, you could have also said MKO this way as well. But remember that K is always your vertex. It is in the center again. So right angle is always 90 degrees. Plane SOT. So you could have your S over here, your O over here, and your T over here. You could have also have it sitting in your plane. So SOT. Okay, so it could look like either of those. So remember, when we're talking about planes, you have to have 3 points to make a plane. At least 3 points. Wherever there are 3 points in space, you can make a plane. Angle FOR. Okay, so this is just a regular angle. Could look like this, could look like this, could look like this. As long as you label it FOR with O being your vertex. Okay, because O sits in the center. So these are different types of angles that you could create for angle FOR. Segment NO with midpoint R. Okay, so segment here is going to be a line with endpoints. So let's create our segment NO. Make sure you label it. Midpoint R. Okay, so my midpoint is going to sit in the center. So I would generally have to figure out how long this is, divide it by 2 to figure out where my center is, and my midpoint should sit right in the center. We label that R. Okay, whenever we have a midpoint, we have 2 congruent sides. So we need to show that those sides are congruent by putting our little dashes in them. Congruent segments RO and TM. So my first segment is RO, and then I would have to measure this to see how long it is to create my next segment, TM. Okay, to show that those 2 segments are congruent, we need to make sure we have the lines dashed through them so that we know both those lines are congruent. vertical angles. Okay, vertical angles sit across from each other. They are vertical. Okay, so if I have 1 here and 2 here, these are vertical angles. Vertical angles are always congruent, which means we can set them equal to each other. Okay, they sit across from each other. A lot of you guys are getting this mixed up. Okay, so they sit across from each other. We can set them equal to each other. They should be the exact same degrees. Adjacent angles are going to be angles that sit next to each other. Okay, so 1 and 2 sit next to each other, 2 and 3 sit next to each other, 3 and 4 and 1. Okay, all of these angles sit next to each other. They are adjacent. Complementary angles, okay? These are angles that when you add them together, they should equal 90 degrees, okay? They do not have to be sitting next to each other. They can be across from each other as long as when you add them up, they are 90 degrees. Okay, so if I'm saying 2 angles should equal a complementary angle, that means I'm going to take both of those angles, add them together, and set them equal to 90 degrees. Okay, so whenever you see the word complementary, you are going to be using 90-degree angles, okay, somewhere in that, or 2 angles that add up to be 90 degrees. Along with that, supplementary angles are 180 degrees, okay, so you're going to be looking at angles that either make 180 degrees or that when the 2 angles add up, it equals 180 degrees. Okay, so if you ever see the word supplementary, you know that 180 degrees has to be somewhere in that problem.